two more stats stood out to me so promptly that they were just glued in my mind. The first one was, now, well, these are ballpark figures, but it's very close. Around 70% of children before the age of 14 or the amount of children that are introduced to scholastic activities or what is it called? Arts and crafts activities with their parents. 70% of children that are involved in those activities end up going to college.
Really?
But only around 40% of children have that opportunity. So do
Huh.
you see that's interesting,
Wait,
right?
say that again.
So
So
around
70%?
70% of children that are involved in these activities, the
Okay.
arts and crafts, with a parent, usually tend to go to college. But only around 40% of children have that opportunity.
Huh.
That's a very interesting fact. So, and when it ties into, like you said, students being comfortable, right? Or we talked about this the other day. You have inspiration and desperation, right? And a lot of students are in that comfort zone. And you just brought up a really good point where you need that curiosity
Yeah.
spark. And so those kids that are involved in activities like that with a mentor, with parents,
I'd be
what
curious
is
to
your
see
take?
that of the 70%, if the correlation, all right, and correlation and causation are not the same, but the correlation was that 70% of, was it 70% of kids that were involved in arts and crafts ended up going to
Yes,
college?
with
So
a
not
parent.
70% of collegiate students, but
No,
no, but 70% of kids that were exposed to
when they
that
were
ended up going.
younger, yeah,
So at the
yes.
top of a Pareto distribution, they ended up going. That's interesting. I'd like to
Hmm.
see the stat if there was one on who graduated or not of that. Now we don't have that obviously, but I would also. It's interesting you bring up that only 40% of students even
Have that opportunity,
have that
or like
opportunity.
parents give that opportunity to their kids.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at it like at face value, that without any data or anything, just off the top, well, look at the correlation. People that are given the opportunity to think, how you could say outside the box, would be more likely to go into school. I mean, that would be a correlation to creativity and thinking and interest in learning. Yes. I mean, it's extremely complex subject. I'd love to see if they would do studies on to see who, like, of that 2 million that graduate, what were their interests or how were they raised? That I'd like to see statistics on,
That's a great point.
because what you just said of that stat, that most of the kids that were exposed to arts and crafts ended up going to school, and that less than half of kids are even exposed to that. It's interesting because that kind of aligns with, to suggest at least, I guess, a causation potential or a correlative to the effect of less than 10%. It's right. It's about 10% of kids that go to college
About, yeah.
graduate every year. So that shows that it's like, all right, but I'm interested to see if they have statistics on like what the graduation, who graduates, right? What are their interests? How were they raised? Like that. If we could find a stat on that, I'd love to see that.
No, that's actually you sparked that thought in my head. As soon
Yeah,
as you
should
said
look it
that,
up.
the kids, the students that are curious, the students that are involved in not just being, head down in the books, but actually are curious to think and figure out new ideas, they're more active. They're more likely to.
Well, why wouldn't, like, let's say, why wouldn't a student be more likely to go and continue learning if they are interested in that? I mean, we at the end of the day construct meaning in our life based on stimulus and how we perceive it. Things happen, we perceive it as negative or positive, and we either keep going or we stop. So if we have a good experience at a young adolescent age, psychologically speaking, we're going to put that as a positive thing and want to keep reaffirming that past memory that constructs our reality. I mean, that's just like basic psychological understanding. It's like